I'm Steve Moss of Executive Springboard, and I'm delighted to have my friend Peter Himmelman join me today. Peter is an Emmy and Grammy nominated songwriter, singer, and guitarist. And when the economics of the recording industry went pear-shaped about how long ago? 10, 15 years? He
So,
he reinvented his business model and founded the Big Muse, using his music as a vehicle for organizations to become more courageous and creative. Peter's creative endeavors don't stop with music. He is a visual artist and he's the author of two books. His first book, Let Me Out, is kind of a how to on creativity. And his new book, just about to be released, is called Suspended by No String, and it focuses on awareness, transcendence, and faith. Peter, welcome.
thank you. Thank you. I like how you gave the parenthetical to those books. I couldn't staff writer.
Terrific. Hey, listen, let's talk about the first book first, and then we'll find another time to talk about your new release. In Let Me Out, you introduce your readers to an old frenemy who you've named Marv.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Well, he is not a friend of me. He is a friend, but he's an incredibly annoying friend. And Marv was the name that I gave to our internal critic. His name spells out the acronym majorly afraid of revealing vulnerability.
Perfect.
So we need Marv if we're being chased by a rabid puma, or if we fall out of a plane, or in some incredibly emergent situation. But normally, if we're writing a brief, or facing our board, or writing a poem, or having a difficult conversation, we need to tell Marv, thank you for filling us with this anxiety and this extra energy, like a bowstring being pulled back. But I'm gonna let you go for a minute, Marv. I got this. And it's good to know the difference between the puma and the poem.
So Marv has been there as kind of a survival mechanism,
Right.
and he's the inner critic within all of us, and he's perpetually uptight.
I mean, he's on guard, and thank God he's trying to save our life. So I try to, at least in the book, present this posture where you're not fighting against this internal critic. You're acknowledging, it's anthropomorphizing, of course. There's no lip
Right.
in your head, although I did draw a picture of him for the book. Um, but you're acknowledging the existence of this critic, and you understand that, God forbid something major occurs, this amygdala, this limbic brain will kick into action. You're just sort of saying, you know, take a seat, light up a Tipperillo, read the Atlantic, whatever your thing is, and I'm going to set to work for a couple of hours here, and you can come criticize me later, but I got to get this thing done.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that you suggest that you get Marv to relax just a little bit. Can you share some of those?
One of the things that's most helpful, as with most problems that arise, is a recognition and understanding, sort of witnessing what's going on. They call it metacognition in the psychology world, where you can sort of see yourself in action and sort of take stock of, well, I'm becoming enraged, and you can calm yourself down, or you're completely anxious. You can just draw your attention to the fact that you're becoming anxious. It's already a good start. The other thing in terms of creative work is to not wait, which many people do, for this Marv character, which I can refer to for the time being,
Yeah.
to abate and to have his influence cease to be before you start working. The influence will never cease to be until you start working. And once you do, once you sit down to do whatever it is that you're going to do, or stand up to deliver whatever it is you're going to deliver, Marv will see that you've taken a position of, I'm safe, I'm doing this. and Marv's influence will be mitigated severely.
So a lot of this then is getting up and starting to do, and with that comes the courage to do the stuff that Marv is trying to protect us from.
The real courage that we need is to start. That's generally how it is. I mean, I know people, taking it to the music world, for example. There's a guy that I know who's a brilliant musician, and he's wanted to make a record for years and years and years. And now that records are like, or any kind of recording, there's no
Yeah.
remuneration at all. He started to do it, and he said, you were right. I should have just sat down and done it. And there's so many things in my own life that I haven't started for fear of, what might happen, or sometimes it's as small as being embarrassed.
Right. Yeah.
That big, look, no matter what we are, no matter who we are, how much money we make, and whatever it is, we're never fully protected from this internal critic. Is constantly there. We have to be sort of vigilant, both vigilant and kind of cognizant of what's happening here. Is this a deadly threat? Well, then, yeah, go for it. If it's just going to be embarrassment or something like that, or a challenge, don't let it stop you.
Well, and you didn't let it stop you when you started Big Muse, and I'm kind of interested in that process because a lot of people that I'll talk to are at points in their career where they're looking to make a change, and you made a fundamental change, and I'm kind of interested a little bit about how you were able to take that step, conquer the fears perhaps, and start something so different.
Well, I mean, I would like to characterize it not so much as a fundamental change, but an important extension on the things that I already knew. And for me, that's an important point to make. When people quote transition, they're not leaving behind all the skills that they've accrued over perhaps many years. So for me, when it came to leadership and trust building and creativity, that was something I was doing since I was in sixth grade. I mean, I was serious about music and having the practices on time and encouraging my bandmates and writing songs. The only challenge was, and it wasn't that difficult, it was scary, was how is this stuff that I know from this different point of view. I've never, been in an official business capacity. I
Hmm.
didn't know what ROI was. I had no idea of these terms. But the challenge was, how do I create a bridge between what I know and what I've done and make it useful for other people? And what I found was it wasn't difficult at all. It took about 15 minutes for me to kind of adjust and come up with a conversation that people would understand. I come from a different world, and it's in some ways, the data shows that that's almost a better way to learn. You don't
Yeah.
have to be necessarily always from the inside explaining the same terminology, because we sometimes that just becomes a meme or a trope for us. Somebody that comes in, let's say somebody from the world of business that talks to musicians, it's a great way for musicians to understand what they themselves do.
I, your career, if you take a look at it from the outside, from I'll say from my perspective, it you could see it as a prototype of creativity,
Mhm.
and it's easy for some of us who are in the business world, in a finance role or a legal profession or human resources, to say that our professions are inherently not creative. What would you say about that?
Well, I mean, I would say that's a very misbegotten understanding, or a misunderstanding. First of all, creativity, I mean, we could go on for days about that. One of the fundamentals of creativity is, and this creates a correlation and a connection between everybody. First of all, I don't see people with like a little beard trying to like stay cool in a hat. I don't see that that makes anybody creative, or the person with a guitar is somehow more creative than the actuary. What everybody is doing, anyone that's doing anything and is successful, is taking a a mass of information, whether it's notes or data, and creating order from this chaos. That is the one of the essentials of creativity and what draws everybody together. The other thing that's the baseline of creativity is communication, the thing that you do. And when you're onboarding and when you're teaching people about it and resources, you're you're aiding people in something that they need to understand. I mean, it's not a song, but it's no less creative. It's a prejudice that people hold that the dancer and the artist is the creative one, and even the mail carrier or the VC person isn't creative. Just to go on with this for 1 second, when I learned about air rights, which is in real estate, like in New York City, people buy a building, but they also buy for the future these air rights. And I'm thinking to myself, what incredible imagination these real estate moguls must have, married with incredible fortitude, that they're projecting 20, 25 years into the future. To me, that is a perfect exemplar of pure creativity.
And that's it's an interesting thing to just almost ironic as you think about creativity, as you said, bringing order to chaos. Because a lot of us would think about that order as being something that is inherently creative. But I think that's an important piece. And for me, a lot of this also is how generally people coming up with a different solution that works.
Absolutely. And there's sort of, you could use that analogy again of there's disorder somehow,
Mm.
or there's something that had been working and one sees a different way of doing it. And there's so many steps that go along with creativity, the least of which is selling the idea.
Yeah.
Um, I said maybe perhaps not the least of it. And even daring to have a new idea, even thinking ahead, well, how can we make this different? How can we make this better, more seamless, more efficient?
I think you're inspiring us to dare, and that's terrific.
I'm inspiring myself to dare to. It takes one to know one,
Thank you. Yeah. Peter, thank you. If you want to learn more about Peter, you can visit his website, peterhimmelman.com. And Peter and other Executive Springboard mentors can be found at execspringboard.com/mentor.
And I
Thank
also
you.
want to put a plug in for bigmuse.com, which
There we go. Bigmuse.com as well.
yes, all right. Great.
Okay.